So you've done the morning affirmations, you've meticulously built the vision board, and you've carefully pinned up all these images of the life you are absolutely certain you're meant to live.
Oh yeah, the classic vision board.
Right. And you've journaled until your hand physically aches. You wake up before the sun, you visualize, you meditate, and you just pour this absolute ocean of effort into shifting your mindset.
You're doing all the homework?
Exactly. But then, you look up and your bank account or your career or your dating life, it looks exactly the same as it did a vast constellation of days ago.
Yeah, which is just the ultimate frustration, isn't it?
It really is. So today, we're going to talk about why the entire industry built around creating your reality actually, well, it kind of relies on you failing.
It's a tough truth to swallow.
It is. We're going to look at the incredibly uncomfortable truth that you might actually be operating the machinery of your own life in reverse.
Yeah, and when you're essentially following every rule you've been given, and the internal effort is cranked to an absolute maximum, but the external feedback remains this completely flat line, I mean, it totally messes with your head.
It really does. You start thinking, what's wrong with me?
Exactly. The human mind just turns on itself. We start looking in the mirror and asking, what is structurally broken here? What invisible secret ingredient is everybody else using that I somehow missed?
Yeah. And that feeling of brokenness is exactly where we want to begin our exploration today. Because if you are listening to this and you've experienced that agonizing friction of trying to force a breakthrough, maybe you're a business owner trying to shatter a revenue ceiling that feels like it's made of forged iron.
Or, you're trying to call in a relationship that doesn't just end in the exact same repeating cycle of disappointment.
Right. You really need to hear this. You are not broken. The machinery is not malfunctioning at all. In fact, you are already an absolute master at materializing your reality. You just, well, haven't been doing it on purpose.
Which is, I mean, that is a heavy thing to hear when your current reality is actively causing you pain.
Oh, totally. It sounds like a joke.
Yeah, to be told you're a master at creating the very thing you are desperately trying to escape. It sounds cruel, but it is the foundational key to everything we're going to unpack. You actually possess absolute mastery over the process of materialization.
So the engine is working.
Your internal engine is roaring. It is functioning flawlessly. It's just that your hands are basically tied to the steering wheel, and you are unknowingly driving yourself in continuous circles.
Wow. Okay, so let's pull this apart. Because to understand how we're driving in circles, I think we have to look at who taught us to drive in the first place.
We do. And that's where we get into the industry itself.
Yeah, because there is this massive ecosystem out there, just a sprawling landscape of seminars and courses and gurus, all supposedly dedicated to teaching you how to achieve your desires. But the overwhelming majority of this space operates on a model that is fundamentally structurally flawed. Think about a facility for the unwell, like a place dedicated to healing.
Okay, I follow you.
From a purely economic standpoint, that facility relies entirely on a continuous stream of sickness to keep its doors open. If everyone were permanently and totally cured overnight, the whole industry would just vanish.
Yeah, and the industry surrounding reality creation thrives on a very similar balanced equilibrium. They absolutely rely on your partial success and, frankly, your ongoing failure.
Oh, wow, yeah. They need you to stay on the hook.
Exactly. If they gave you the entire picture, you would never need to buy another course. So they feed you just a mere fragment of the truth. They give you enough hope to keep you invested, but they withhold the core mechanics that would actually set you free.
And I think the most dangerous tool they use to keep you on that hook is something we can call externalization. I mean, I see this everywhere.
What's everywhere?
It's this really pervasive toxic habit of projecting our inherent power onto outside methods. It's the belief that the magic is in, like, the specific crystal on your desk.
Or the exact phrasing of some chant.
Yes. Or this highly specific sequence of thoughts you supposedly need to have right before dawn.
Yeah, we are so conditioned to seek a shiny object to save us. We become completely mesmerized by the reflection of power outside of ourselves, and in doing so, we just forget entirely that we are actually the most powerful object in the room.
We give it all away.
We do. The industry says, hey, here's the golden key, and we eagerly buy it, completely oblivious to the fact that we are the ones who built the door, the lock, and the house itself.
It brings up a great analogy. It's like frantically searching the dark forest with a tiny dying flashlight, hoping to find the sun, without realizing you are literally made of fire.
That is a perfect way to put it.
But wait, why are we so eager to buy into it? I mean, humans are incredibly resilient and capable creatures. Why is human nature so incredibly quick to surrender its own magnitude to these external rituals?
Well, it comes down to a very primal need for psychological safety.
Safety, how so?
There is an immense, really comforting safety in externalizing your power. Think about the implications for a second. If you put the totality of your faith into a highly specific visualization technique or, a daily journaling ritual, and your life does not improve, what happens?
I guess you get to blame the ritual.
Precisely. You get to say, well, the method was flawed, or that teacher didn't know what they were talking about. Your ego remains perfectly safe and intact. You are still just the victim of circumstance.
Ah, so it is an insulation mechanism. If the tool is broken, I am not responsible for my life staying the same.
Exactly. However, if you accept the premise that your own internal state, your continuously running consciousness, is the sole generator of your entire experience, that safety net vanishes instantly.
Yeah, because then it's all on me.
Right. You must take absolute terrifying responsibility for your life. Every prolonged stagnation, every frustrating client, every chaotic relationship becomes a direct mirror reflecting your internal state.
And that's a tough pill to swallow.
It really is. And for the vast majority of people, facing the overwhelming magnitude of their own continuous responsibility is just too painful. They would much rather cling to a broken technique than look in the mirror.
That is terrifying because it means we really can't play the victim anymore. We can't complain about the economy or our boss or our childhood conditioning as the ultimate barrier.
No, you can't.
But, if I am supposed to take full responsibility, what exactly am I taking responsibility for? Because I can't just forcefully think a pile of cash onto my desk or think a perfect partner into my living room right this second.
Right. That's not how it works.
So if the physical world isn't something we manipulate from the outside with sheer force, what actually is it?
Well, to answer that, we have to completely upend and redefine our understanding of reality itself.
Okay, let's do it.
The foundational error most of us make, and really the reason we suffer so much, is that we treat the physical plane as if it is fixed. Like it's permanent, solid architecture.
Because it looks solid.
Exactly. We look at an empty bank account or a physical ailment or a highly strained family dynamic, and we view it as absolute. We think it's an unmovable mountain. But reality is entirely moldable.
Moldable, okay.
Yeah. The great illusion is that mind and matter are two separate, opposing forces battling each other.
Raw?
They are not. They are one single entity. Consciousness is actually the underlying substance of all reality.
So we aren't just a mind trapped inside a separate physical world. The world is literally made of the mind. I mean, that sounds incredibly esoteric. Can we ground that a bit? How does that actually work mechanically?
Sure, let's use an analogy involving the states of water. Think of consciousness and physical matter in the exact same way you think of steam and ice.
She's in ice. Okay, I'm with you.
They possess the exact same essence, right? They're composed of the exact same fundamental elemental substance. The only difference between them is their vibratory intensity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Consciousness, your internal state, is the fluid, high-vibration steam. It is boundless, it is moving, it is formless, and it can take any shape. Physical reality, the chair you're sitting on, the traffic jam you're stuck in, the balance in your checking account, is the dense, slow vibration ice.
So reality is just frozen steam.
Exactly. Therefore, the physical world you are currently standing in is quite literally nothing more than frozen imagination.
Frozen imagination. I love that. That is a brilliant way to phrase it because it highlights the sensory illusion we're all completely trapped in.
It really does.
Because our human eyes are incredibly limited biological instruments. When we look at a seemingly solid object, like a concrete wall or an oak dining table, we perceive absolute stillness.
Right. Our eyes completely lack the capacity to perceive the microscopic vibration of the particles within that solid object.
Exactly. It looks permanent, so our brain instantly labels it as unmovable. And the tragedy is we do this exact same thing with our life circumstances.
Yes, we do. We look at a prolonged period of professional struggle, and our eyes and our analytical minds label it as solid reality. We falsely conclude that it cannot be moved. We treat the ice as if it is stronger than the steam.
But if our circumstances are just frozen imagination, why do we let them dictate our emotional state so completely? I mean, if someone looks at their business failing, it ruins their entire week. They get stressed, their cortisol spikes, they snap at their spouse.
Oh, absolutely.
If it is just ice, why does it have so much power over us?
Because of a fundamental misunderstanding of time and origin. We let the physical reality dictate our emotional state because we have completely forgotten where the physical reality came from in the first place.
Wait, unpack that a little.
When you project immense importance upon your current physical circumstances, you are allowing the delayed, frozen product of your past imagination to dictate the fresh, fluid consciousness of your present moment.
Ah, wow. It's a loop.
It is an endless, agonizing loop of reacting to old news. You are literally reading yesterday's newspaper and letting it ruin today's mood.
That is such a huge shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the goal isn't to push around heavy blocks of ice, what is the actual goal? What is the real redefinition of reality creation?
This is the paradigm shift that dismantles the entire industry of shiny objects. Reality creation is not about bending the physical world to your will.
Okay.
It is fundamentally defined as shifting internally to a degree where you are no longer emotionally dependent upon seeing the physical reality change.
Hold on, I want to challenge that. Shifting internally to a degree where you no longer need to see the physical reality change? I mean, that feels like a massive paradox.
It sounds like one, yeah.
So of course I need to see it change. If a person is drowning in debt or dealing with chronic loneliness, they obviously want the external reality to shift. How can anyone possibly not be dependent on seeing it change when the current reality is just so painful?
Well, it feels like a paradox until you dissect the underlying psychology of dependence.
Oh.
Dependence, by its very nature, implies a state of lack. When you are emotionally dependent on seeing your reality change, when you are pacing the floor saying, I need this to happen so I can finally feel secure, you are broadcasting a continuous screaming signal of, I do not have this yet.
Ah, I see.
You are generating a frequency of absolute absence. Your nervous system is in a constant state of threat. And because the cosmic mirror only reflects what you are, it will flawlessly reflect that state of absence back to you in the form of continued stagnation.
So the desperation to change the ice actually keeps it frozen?
Exactly. By shifting internally to a state where you cultivate the feeling of fulfillment, safety, and abundance, regardless of the external reflection, you step out of the frequency of lack.
You become the warm steam rather than a person desperately punching the ice.
Yes. You remove the frantic desperation. You neutralize the threat response in your nervous system.
I see. So it's not that you don't care about the outcome, it's that you stop treating the outcome as your emotional hostage taker. You stop saying, I refuse to be happy until the universe delivers my order.
Precise.
But this brings us to a really crucial point. Because if we are the ones constantly freezing the steam, this isn't some new skill we're trying to acquire. We aren't learning how to turn on a machine. This machine is already running on autopilot.
And this leads to the most common, really the most fundamental misunderstanding of anyone seeking to improve their life.
Which is?
When an individual asks the question, how do I materialize my reality? They are asking a fundamentally flawed question. The premise is entirely backwards. It is the exact equivalent of walking up to someone on the street and asking, how do I breathe?
Right. If someone gasped and asked you for a step-by-step tutorial on human respiration, you would just stare at them.
You'd think they were crazy.
You would say, you are literally doing it right now. You couldn't even form the words to ask me the question if your lungs weren't already perfectly executing the process.
The materialization of human experience is an automatic, continuous, unrelenting function of existence.
Yeah.
It is not a special skill you acquire after reading a vast constellation of texts or, attending some high-priced retreat.
It's just happening.
Always. Every single circumstance you are currently navigating, even the deeply frustrating ones, the persistent heartbreaks, the recurring financial deficits, is something you have perfectly, successfully, and flawlessly materialized. You've just done it unconsciously.
So your internal machinery is functioning at absolute peak efficiency. It is faithfully crystallizing your internal state into external ice, day after relentless day.
Yes. The system never fails. It is merely taking your unconscious, chaotic internal instructions and building an exact physical replica of them.
There is an incredible, almost liberating weight to that realization. At first, it sounds deeply harsh. A listener might think, are you telling me I created this horrible mess? I created this toxic workplace?
It's a very common reaction to feel blamed.
But if you sit with it, the empowerment is just staggering. If you are already succeeding with absolute perfection at creating a life you actively dislike, it means the mechanism isn't broken.
Exactly. You aren't lacking any power.
You don't need an upgrade to your engine. The dial is just tuned to the wrong station. The engine is roaring with immense horsepower. The steering wheel is just tied off to the right, driving you in endless circles in the dirt.
Which is why the solution is not to press the gas pedal harder. The solution is to untie the steering wheel.
But how? I mean, if we are already breathing on autopilot, how do we step in and consciously change the rhythm without suffocating ourselves with overthinking?
That's the real challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, because the moment someone says focus on your breathing, I suddenly feel like I am doing it wrong. I get hyper aware, my chest tightens, and the natural rhythm is totally ruined. If we're constantly creating reality, how do we change the output without crippling ourselves with anxiety over every single passing thought?
To change the rhythm safely without inducing that panic, we must stop asking how to breathe and start examining the atmosphere we are actually breathing in.
The atmosphere.
If you are breathing on autopilot in a room entirely filled with toxic smoke, your lungs will suffer immensely. You don't need a breathing coach in that scenario. You need to examine the smoke.
That makes total sense.
We need to look at the invisible mechanics that dictate the shape the ice will take. We must understand exactly how the universe interprets our internal state.
Okay, let's explore those mechanics because this is where the abstract philosophy becomes highly practical. We can look at the universe as a boundless cosmic marketplace.
A marketplace, exactly.
And to be clear, this is not a marketplace subject to supply chain issues. It contains every conceivable variation of reality, stretching out in infinite overlapping directions. Every possible outcome already exists there as a potentiality.
It's all already there.
So the reality you are living right now, the room you are sitting in, the specific challenges you are facing, is the exact order you unknowingly placed with this cosmic marketplace. To change the order that consistently arrives at your doorstep, you must change your frequency.
And frequency is a word we really need to rescue from the realm of vague mysticism.
Oh, please do, because it gets thrown around constantly.
It does, often completely stripped of its practical, actionable meaning. But we can define frequency in a highly qualitative, grounded way. Your frequency is the complete culmination of your mental attitude. It is the absolute fusion of the mental and the emotional.
Let's break that fusion down. What's the mental side?
The mental aspect consists of your continuous thoughts, your looping internal narratives, and your baseline assumptions about how the world works.
And the emotional?
The emotional aspect is your underlying mood, your bodily feelings, the state of your nervous system. The marriage of your thoughts and your emotions creates a highly specific, undeniable signature. This signature acts exactly like a product code in the cosmic warehouse.
I love the product code analogy. So when my internal product code perfectly matches a potential reality sitting out there in the universal warehouse, that specific reality is dispatched to my physical experience.
Precisely. It is an infallible, automated sorting system.
So if my product code is constantly scanning for ongoing struggle and betrayal, the marketplace cannot accidentally send me effortless success and loyalty. The codes simply do not match. The scanner will reject it.
It is a system of absolute unbending resonance. It has no morality, it has no pity, and it has no bias. It only reads the code.
Wow.
And this frequency, this product code, is not a mystery. It is upheld by four crucial pillars. Understanding how these four pillars interact is how we actually decode the invisible language of the universe.
So what is printing this product code? If it isn't just me casually wishing for things, what are the actual mechanisms? Where do we even begin?
We must begin at the bedrock. The first pillar is belief. This is the structural foundation of your entire reality.
Belief. Okay.
Beliefs are not just things you agree with intellectually. They are the deeply ingrained, often unconscious assumptions you hold about the fundamental nature of existence.
Right. There is a massive difference between a conscious desire and an unconscious belief. A person might consciously desire to build a thriving, highly profitable enterprise.
But if their baseline unconscious belief is that wealthy people are inherently corrupt, or that making money always requires agonizing, soul-crushing sacrifice,
Well,
their foundation will actively repel the desire.
it pushes it away.
Exactly. And we can actually look at this through the lens of cognitive psychology. The human brain utilizes a filtering mechanism known as the reticular activating system.
The RAS. Yes.
It is an extraordinary network of neurons that acts as a bouncer for your conscious mind. Because you are bombarded with an overwhelming cascade of sensory data every second, the brain must filter out what it deems irrelevant.
And what does it use as the criteria for relevance?
Your core beliefs. If you believe the world is hostile, your brain will literally delete evidence of kindness and highlight every perceived slight or insult simply to prove your belief correct. You cannot experience a reality that your brain is actively filtering out.
It's like trying to build a towering skyscraper on a foundation of shifting quicksand. The structure of the desire simply cannot hold because the architectural foundation, the belief, is unstable.
That's a great way to picture it.
So if belief is the foundation, what is the next pillar? Because once I have a belief, I still have to navigate my day-to-day life.
That navigation is dictated by the second pillar, attention, where you consistently direct your focus, serves as a massive, undeniable indicator of your state of consciousness. Attention is the currency you use in this cosmic marketplace.
And people spend their attention so recklessly. We let algorithms, news cycles, and past grievances steal our attention all day long.
We really do.
If your attention is constantly tethered to the perceived injustices of your past, or you are hyperfixated on the microscopic flaws in your current situation, you are actively instructing the universal marketplace to send more items that warrant that specific type of frustrated attention.
Yes, because the brain is highly neuroplastic. It wires itself based on where attention is repeatedly focused. If you constantly focus on unfairness, you build a superhighway in your brain dedicated to perceiving
It
unfairness.
becomes your default state.
Exactly. You are essentially telling the universe, this is what I'm interested in. Please provide more.
But let me push back here for a second. Because I can pay attention to something I want. Let's say I pay attention to the idea of financial freedom. I read the books, I look at the numbers, I focus my attention on it. But I can do all of that and still be completely broke. So attention alone isn't enough to print the product code, is it?
You are entirely correct. Which brings us to the most vital and really the most frequently missing component. The third pillar is emotional conviction.
Emotional conviction.
This is the mechanism that takes a passing thought and gives it gravitational pull.
Let's define conviction, because I think the modern self-help industry has totally watered this down to just feeling good or being positive.
Oh, being positive is entirely superficial. Emotional conviction goes far beyond a temporary mood. It is a state of absolute, unwavering certainty within the nervous system.
It's deeper than just a smile.
Much deeper. If we look at the ancient linguistic roots of conviction, long before modern interpretations, it spoke to a profound confidence, a knowing that is so deeply seated within the body that it requires absolutely no external proof to sustain it.
It's the feeling of safety.
Exactly. When your nervous system is regulated, when you feel a deep somatic trust that the outcome is assured, that intensity permeates the cosmic warehouse. Without emotional conviction, a thought is just a passing cloud that has no density. With it, a thought becomes gravitational. It literally pulls the physical world toward it.
So it is not about hyping yourself up into a frenzy of forced excitement. It's about dropping into a state of profound, unshakable calm. It is the difference between screaming, "I am going to win," out of desperation, and quietly knowing the game is already decided in your favor.
Beautifully said. Which naturally forces us to examine the final all-encompassing pillar, identity. Who do you inherently assume yourself to be when absolutely no one is watching? Does your core self-concept actually match the reality you are calling in?
This is where the rubber meets the road. Because identity is kind of the bottom turtle, right? It supports everything else.
It does. Let's look at a practical scenario. Imagine an individual trying to materialize massive professional success. They want to be seen as a leader in their field. But internally, their core identity is wrapped entirely around being the perpetual underdog.
Ah,
They derive their sense of self from the struggle, from being the one who always barely scrapes by but survives. There is a fundamental catastrophic mismatch. The product code is entirely scrambled.
so the universe hears, "Give me success," but the identity is broadcasting, "I am the underdog."
And the identity will always win, because the identity is what dictates the emotional conviction.
You just cannot continuously outperform your own self-concept. If you see yourself as unworthy, you will unconsciously sabotage the negotiation, you will hesitate on the pitch, you will pick fights in the relationship.
The identity acts as a thermostat.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, if the temperature of success gets too high, the underdog identity kicks in and cools everything back down to a comfortable level of struggle.
Precisely. If we connect this to the broader tapestry of human behavior, these four pillars, belief, attention, emotional conviction, and identity, are not just abstract concepts. They are the actual code operating your reality every single second of your life.
They are what forms the fluid steam before it eventually freezes into the ice of your daily circumstances.
I just love how these mechanisms interlock. But I want to explore the genuine human friction here. Let's use an analogy. Understanding these four pillars is like possessing an incredibly advanced, masterfully engineered radio transmitter.
Okay, a radio transmitter.
We possess this magnificent equipment within our own consciousness, but right now we have left the dial stuck on a station playing aggressive, deafening static. And instead of looking at the dials, adjusting our beliefs, shifting our attention, calming our nervous system, we are just staring at the physical radio, yelling at it, and blaming it for the noise.
We blame the external world for our internal static. It is a profound displacement of responsibility.
But here is the genuine challenge. When the static is so incredibly loud, when life is genuinely, undeniably difficult, when the bank account is truly empty, when the physical pain in your body is real and persistent, how does one realistically shift that product code?
It's hard. It really is.
Because it is a lovely philosophical idea to say, change your identity. But it is an entirely different endeavor to do it while the heavy ice of reality is actively crushing you. It feels impossible to ignore the static when it is blowing out your eardrums.
That is the exact juncture where the overwhelming majority of humanity stumbles and gives up. Because the static of physical reality is loud, and because shifting the internal product code requires immense, deliberate mental discipline, most people abandon the internal work entirely.
The discipline just feels too heavy.
Exactly. So what do? Instead of tuning the dials of their own consciousness, they turn back to physical rituals. They seek out external tools, hoping the tool will magically change the station for them so they don't have to do the mental heavy lifting.
And this leads us to what is perhaps the most profoundly misunderstood aspect of this entire exploration. We have to look at the actual functional role of techniques.
This is a big one.
And here is where it gets really interesting and frankly a bit shocking for anyone who has spent a significant portion of their life in the personal development or reality creation space. We need to tear the Band-Aid off here. The revelation is this: no technique works on its own. None of them.
It is a bitter pill to swallow for the chronic seeker, but it is the absolute truth.
Repeating empowering phrases in a bathroom mirror until your voice goes hoarse.
Writing your ambitious goals hundreds of times in a letter-bound journal before bed.
Creating elaborate visual collages of desired items and staring at them until your eyes water. These are inherently fundamentally powerless actions. The actions themselves possess absolute zero creative capability.
It is vital to separate the tool from the power source. Techniques are merely empty vehicles.
Empty vehicles.
Imagine a beautifully crafted, aerodynamically perfect automobile. It has the potential to travel vast distances and navigate treacherous terrain. But a vehicle, no matter how exquisite the engineering, cannot move a single inch without fuel.
Right, it just sits there.
The techniques you are sold by the industry, the intricate morning routines, the specific frequencies of audio to listen to while sleeping, the visualization templates are just metal and glass. They are the car. The only fuel that activates any technique, the only combustible energy that makes the engine turn over, is your absolute emotional conviction that it will work.
So if you lack the emotional conviction, if you are doing the technique out of sheer desperation, quietly hoping it will act as a life raft to save you from your circumstances, the technique is dead mechanics.
Exactly.
You are essentially sitting in a beautiful car in your driveway, frantically making engine noises with your mouth, and wondering why the scenery outside the window isn't changing.
That's a perfect image. The power is never, ever in the phrase you speak. The power is in the absolute, somatic knowing behind the phrase. This explains the discrepancy we see all the time.
What do you mean?
Well, if one person uses a visual collage and completely transforms the trajectory of their life, and another person uses the exact same collage method and experiences nothing but continued misery and stagnation, the variable is not the collage.
Right.
The variable is the invisible internal fuel of conviction they poured into the process. The first person used the collage to generate a profound internal shift. The second person stared at the collage, waiting for the paper to change their life.
But this desire to find the perfect vehicle leads to a massive, debilitating psychological trap. I call it analysis paralysis, but it goes much deeper than that. Because people lack that internal emotional conviction because they don't fundamentally trust their own consciousness, they feel deeply insecure.
So they consume more.
Yes. So they frantically consume more and more information. They read an endless tide of texts. They listen to thousands of hours of audio. They jump from seminar to seminar, constantly searching for the right vehicle. They think, maybe writing it down isn't the right vehicle. Maybe I need to speak it aloud. Wait, someone else said I need to visualize it right before falling asleep.
It leads to a tragic state where the mind literally begins to eat itself. It becomes completely crippled by contradicting advice.
Because everyone is selling a different car.
Exactly. One teacher says you must let go of the desire completely. Another teacher says you must focus on it constantly. The seeker becomes paralyzed, frozen in a state of perpetual preparation, doing absolutely nothing, crushed under the immense weight of accumulated theory.
Staring at a field of crops does not harvest them. Studying the complex botanical properties of a strawberry does not allow you to taste its sweetness. You can read about driving forever, but eventually you have to get behind the wheel. So what is the antidote to this paralysis? How do we escape the endless loop of information consumption?
There is a vital, non-negotiable need to abandon the endless accumulation of theoretical knowledge. The antidote to this paralysis is radically simple, yet incredibly difficult for the overactive, anxious mind to accept.
Which is?
You must select one simple vehicle. It truly does not matter which one. Select any vehicle that feels natural and uncomplicated to you and pour the totality of your conviction into it. Stop researching the car and start driving.
Just pick a lane. Choose to just quietly visualize for a few moments or simply monitor your internal narratives and decide with absolute finality that this is enough.
It is the decision that it is enough that provides the fuel.
Okay, so we pick a lane, we start driving. But even when we do this, even when we commit to a simple practice and generate that conviction, there is a massive psychological trap waiting for us just down the road.
Yeah.
It is a subtle trap, but it instantly drains our emotional conviction, empties the fuel tank, and completely ruins the frequency we worked so hard to build.
And this happens the exact moment we look at our desires and treat them as if they are sacred.
Yes, let's talk about that.
This brings us to a fascinating and deeply counterintuitive concept: the absolute power of normalcy. The overwhelming majority of the frequency shaping your entire life is dictated by one very mundane, unremarkable question. What do you consider to be normal?
Normal.
Because whatever you accept as your baseline normal will effortlessly locate you in the physical world.
Your subconscious mind is essentially a sorting mechanism for normalcy. It does not judge, it just maintains the baseline. If you believe it is completely normal that your business deals will always fall apart at the last minute, the universe will effortlessly supply the required sabotage to maintain that normalcy.
What you find normal will find you.
That is a heavy realization. But how does this relate to treating our desires as sacred? Why is it dangerous to revere our goals?
Because treating a desire as sacred leads to the devastating error of pedestalizing it. When you view a goal, let's say a massive leap in your financial status, or finding an extraordinarily compatible partner as a glorious, life-altering, monumental achievement, you elevate it far above your current sense of self.
You put it on a pedestal.
You put it on a towering pedestal. In doing so, you assign it an immense magnitude of importance. And in the subtle physics of reality creation, importance always creates resistance.
Importance creates resistance. Let's unpack the mechanics of that. Why does assigning importance to a goal actively prevent it from arriving?
Because placing massive importance on an outcome sends a very specific signal to your nervous system and to the universe. It signals that this outcome is an anomaly, is rare, it is highly difficult to attain.
So it creates distance.
It explicitly states that there is a vast, almost unbridgeable space between who you are currently and what you want to become. The universe, translating your internal state, interprets importance as distance. The more you pedestalize the desire, the further away you push it.
That makes total sense biologically, too.
It does. Biologically, high importance triggers the amygdala. It creates a state of threat. You become anxious, your performance drops, you overthink, and you begin to act unnaturally.
I see this so clearly in human relationships. Think about the dynamics of early attraction. The more desperately you need someone's approval, the more you elevate them above yourself, the more erratic, anxious, and unnatural your behavior becomes.
You literally repel them with the sheer force of your own neediness.
You laugh too loud, you text too much, you completely smother the connection. Conversely, when you are entirely comfortable in yourself, when you treat the interaction as just a normal, pleasant part of your day, people are naturally drawn to you. The energy is relaxed, grounded, and intensely magnetic.
It is the exact same dynamic with money, with health, with career opportunities. Desperation repels. Comfort attracts.
But this creates a very tricky emotional tightrope for people. Are you essentially saying we are supposed to stop caring about the things we want the most? If someone has a burning desire to build a legacy that provides for their family, do they have to pretend they don't care about it? How do you neutralize importance without killing the ambition?
That is the critical distinction. It is not about a lack of care, nor is it about lowering the standard of what you desire. You do not compromise on the grand vision.
So what do you downgrade?
What you must completely downgrade is the shock value of the vision. You must learn to take your grandest desire completely for granted.
Take your grandest desire for granted. That is a highly provocative statement. It goes against every motivational speech, every hustle culture mantra ever given. We are taught to treat success as a rare mountain peak that we must bleed to conquer.
We are taught that, yes, which is why so few people reach the peak without destroying their health in the process. But true, effortless materialization requires you to treat your outcome with the exact same mundane expectation as drawing your next breath.
Drawing breath again.
Let's look at breathing again. You do not wake up in a state of frantic anxiety, pacing the room, wondering if the oxygen will be there for you to breathe today. You do not write, "I will find air," 50 times in a journal. You take the oxygen completely for granted. It is an absolute, unquestioned given.
You expect it. It is entirely normal.
Exactly. You must cultivate that exact same nonchalant, mundane expectation regarding your grandest desires. The people who desperately, agonizingly need an outcome have the hardest time achieving it. They are choked by the immense importance they placed on it.
While those who treat the massive outcome as a natural given,
A highly logical next step in their journey, they draw it to themselves almost effortlessly. They have collapsed the perceived distance. They don't see it as a miracle, they see it as Tuesday.
make it Tuesday. I really love that as a practical application. If you are visualizing a massive promotion, don't visualize the champagne popping, the confetti falling, and the tearful phone call to your parents. That makes it rare. That makes it a shock.
Right, it puts it on a pedestal.
Visualize yourself 3 years into that exact role, feeling slightly annoyed that you have to fill out the same routine paperwork again. Make the feeling boring. Make it Tuesday. Because if it is Tuesday, it is normal. And what is normal materializes.
When you strip away the massive importance, when you pull the desire off the towering pedestal and place it right next to you on the couch, it ceases to be a distant miracle and becomes an integrated part of your frequency.
This is such a profound shift in how we approach our ambitions, but it brings us to the ultimate friction point. The listener has followed us this far. They understand the trap of externalization. They recognize the physical world is frozen imagination. They are monitoring their 4 pillars, and they are actively downgrading the shock value of their desires to make them normal.
Right, they're doing all the real work now.
But the listener will inevitably ask, okay, I am doing all the internal work. How long does the passage of time take before my physical reality actually changes? When does the ice finally melt?
The answer to that, Krillin, is the final hurdle because it requires us to step entirely outside of our conventional biological understanding of time.
Okay, lay it on us.
From the perspective of consciousness, the realm where creation actually occurs, the materialization is mathematically instantaneous.
Mathematically instantaneous. Now, I have to stop you there.
I knew you would.
Because I can look at my life, and I can look at the lives of millions of people and see that things we wanted yesterday are not physically here today. If I embody the frequency of abundance right now, a massive check does not instantly drop through my ceiling. I can physically look around the room and verify it is not there. So how is saying it is instantaneous not just a form of delusion?
Because we must delineate between the nature of different dimensions of experience.
Mm-hmm.
The physical plane, the world of dense matter, the frozen ice, is entirely constrained by the slow passage of eras. It is irrevocably bound by time and space.
Right.
Physical things take time to travel across distances. Biological processes take time to mature. Societal structures take time to shift. But the mental plane, the boundless realm of higher potential where the steam originates, has absolutely no such constraints.
No constraints at all.
None. Within the mental plane, everything that can possibly exist already exists there as a fully formed potentiality.
So the reality where I have succeeded, the reality where I am healthy, the reality where the business is thriving, it already exists in the warehouse. It doesn't need to be meticulously built from scratch.
Exactly. The creation is already finished. Therefore, the connection to that reality happens the exact instant you embody the desired frequency. The transaction in the universal marketplace is completed immediately. the order is processed.
So what's the catch?
The fatal error humanity consistently makes is waiting to see the physical world change before allowing themselves to feel the reality of the completion.
Ah, this brings to mind a very vivid reflection, what we might call the mirror principle. Imagine you are standing in front of a full-length mirror, and you have a deep, unhappy, frustrated scowl on your face. Naturally, the reflection is scowling back at you.
Naturally.
What we do in life constantly is stand there, arms crossed, staring intensely at the glass, saying, I will smile just as soon as the reflection smiles first. Prove to me I have something to smile about, show me the evidence, and then I will gladly change my expression.
It is absolute madness when you apply it to a physical mirror.
Yeah.
You understand instinctively that the mirror cannot initiate the change.
Right, but we do it with the universe every single day. We demand the frozen ice thaw before we turn up the heat of our own consciousness. We demand the bank account fill up before we feel abundant. You must smile first.
You really must.
You must generate the internal state entirely on your own, independent of the external evidence, and the mirror of physical reality, eventually, subject to the laws of physical time, has absolutely no choice but to reflect it back to you.
If you are continually waiting for the world to prove your success to you before you claim it internally, you are actively reaffirming a frequency of lack.
Yeah.
You are stating to the universe, I do not have it. I am currently waiting for it.
And the universe says, okay, more waiting coming up, flawlessly. It will continuously deliver the physical experience of waiting for it. You remain in the waiting room forever. You must exist as the total, unwavering embodiment of the outcome, long before the frozen ice of your current circumstances thaws and takes the new shape. You must be it entirely in the dark.
You must be it in the dark. That is a stunning summation of the entire challenge of the human experience. It requires a profound level of internal fortitude.
It's the hardest work there is.
We are nearing the end of our exploration today, and if we step back and look at the immense, sweeping territory we have covered, it leads to a much broader reflection on human potential itself. We spend so much of our fleeting lives feeling like fragile, vulnerable creatures tossed around by a cold, random, and uncaring world.
We really do.
We spend our precious energy desperately trying to manipulate the heavy ice with our bare hands, trying to force outcomes, leaving ourselves exhausted, cynical, and bruised. We live defensively, reacting to a world we mistakenly believe is happening to us, rather than responding to a world that is intimately responding to us. But the truth, the hidden mechanics of our existence that we have unpacked today, reveals a completely different, infinitely more powerful reality.
We are not the victims of the ice.
We never were. We are the warm, fluid consciousness that determines the precise shape the ice will eventually take.
We are the steam. And by reclaiming that internal magnitude, by realizing that the power was never in the shiny technique, the secret phrase, or the expensive seminar, we finally step back into the driver's seat of our own existence.
Exactly.
By utilizing our understanding of belief, attention, conviction, and identity. By pulling our grandest desires off their intimidating pedestals and viewing them as our natural, mundane birthright. And by pouring genuine, unshakable conviction into our daily, quiet existence, we cease being victims of circumstance. We become the conscious architects of the human experience.
We stop asking how to breathe.
Yes, we stop asking how to breathe, and we simply start breathing deeply, intentionally, drawing in the exact atmosphere we wish to inhabit.
It is a profound transition from desperate external manipulation to quiet internal assumption. The shift in approach is entirely internal and subtle, but its eventual implications on the physical plane are monumental. It is the reclamation of your inherent nature.
Which leaves us with a final lingering thought. I want to leave you, the listener, with a question to explore long after this audio stops playing as you go about the mundane activities of your day. We established earlier that the frustrating circumstances you face today are nothing more than frozen imagination. They are simply the delayed physical echo of what you were radiating in the past. It is old news.
Yeah, very old news.
So the question you must ask yourself is this. If your physical reality today is simply the delayed echo of your past emotional convictions, what future world are you speaking into existence at this exact fleeting moment?